Have you ever wondered what it was like to be a samurai? Samurai life was certainly not for the faint-hearted, because they were expected to live by a strict code of honor and serve their lord faithfully. It was expected of them that they would give their lives for their master. They had to be constantly on guard and ready for anything, from the constant risk of war to the risk of being killed at any time. If you are interested in learning about the life of a samurai in feudal Japan, then watch the full video, because in this video, we are going to explore and uncover the life and risks of a samurai warrior. And before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. The samurai were very loyal to their leaders, and there are many examples of them showing great bravery and commitment to their bosses. But did you know that even committing suicide was one of their rituals? Perhaps the most famous case in recent history was that of Nobel Prize-nominated author Yukio Mishima, who killed himself in 1970 after leading a failed coup against the Japanese government in a ritual called seppuku, which is also known as harikari in the West, is a type of ritual suicide that was first done by ancient Japanese samurai warriors. Seppuku was first made for samurai in the 12th century so that they could die bravely. Seppuku could be voluntary or obligatory. Voluntary seppuku started out as a way for fallen warriors who did not want to be humiliated by being taken by the enemy to kill themselves. Think of it as the most extreme version possible of saying, "You can't fire me, I quit." On the other hand, obligatory seppuku is the name for the way samurai were killed so that they wouldn't have to be beheaded by a regular executioner. But one cannot just commit suicide and call it seppuku. The right way to do it was to stick a short sword into the left side of the abdomen, move the blade to the right side, and then turn it up. The method was developed over many centuries. People thought it was proper to stab again below the sternum, press down across the first cut, and then pierce the throat. Even though it was harrowing and took a long time, it was a popular way for samurai to commit suicide because it showed their courage, self-control, and strong will. It also showed that they were serious about what they were doing. Women of the samurai class also killed themselves in a ritual called jigai. However, they cut their throats with a short sword or dagger instead of stabbing their stomachs. According to history, when a baby samurai boy was born, he was given a small bow and arrow as a wish for his health and success, which is a very unusual baby gift, to be honest. The bow and arrow have been in use for hunting for the last 400 years. They have also had significance in samurai culture. Samurai swords were curved and made of steel, which is a design that has been around in Japan since the 8th century. Master craftsmen made the steel by carefully controlling the amount of carbon in different parts of the blade to make it as strong and flexible as possible. Because of this, it is said that the Japanese samurai swords were some of the sharpest blades in the Middle Ages. There were different lengths of blades because a samurai would often carry two swords, one long and the other short. The katana blade was about 2 feet long, while the wakizashi was only 30 centimeters long. The edges that were cut were on top of both swords. When you learn about samurai life, you will notice how many unusual rules they have. Another shocking thing about them is their training. You must be at least 18 to get your driver's license or vote for a country, but samurai kids can start their training at 3. In fact, samurai are given the first training sword made of bamboo when they are 3 years old. Around the age of 7, the young samurai were given actual wakizashi, and around the age of 9, they were sent to live with a sword instructor. Samurai boys were conscripted at the tender age of 13. Their training regimen was designed to instill bushito, or established samurai rules, in them. It instructed on thrift, fidelity, martial skills, and honor. Although their fighting skills were significant, they also needed to undergo rigorous mental training to become samurai. But the samurai's weapon is tied to a horrible ceremony, and that is called suziguri, which is a cruel way to try out a sword or fighting style. The test was to attack an opponent, usually an unprotected bystander, at night. During Japan's chaotic Sengo Jidai period from 1467 to 1600, warring states all tried to take over. After that time, suziguri became a very common practice among the samurai class. But before this time, it primarily referred to the traditional samurai duel. As soon as this chaos started, it turned into nothing but making your first kill. After the Tokugawa shogunate brought order back to Japan at the start of the Edo period, the practice was banned in 1602. To understand suzigiri, you must first understand Karasute Gomen. Karasute Gomen means permission to cut and leave. During the time of the samurai, Japan had a very strict feudal system, and people from the lower classes rarely moved up. Honor was a very important part of a samurai's life. If a person from a lower class hurt a samurai's honor, the samurai had the right to hit the person with a sword. But there were rules about this. Because it was self-defense, it had to happen right after the insult, and it wasn't allowed to be a coup de grace. The samurai would have to show witness later to prove that what he did was right. But a samurai could use his own servant as a witness, which meant he could kill almost anyone he wanted just because society thought they were important enough to get away with it. Now, let's have a look at samurai's wedding. Young people in modern Japan have a lot of freedom when it comes to getting married. They can date whoever they want and choose whom they wish to marry. But things were different for the samurai. Samurais actually began to thrive during the Edo period from 1615 to 1868. Even though they moved up to the highest caste, this didn't mean they were given the chance to be independent. The Tokugawa military regime kept a tight hold on the social structure of the Edo period. During the era, marriage was always talked about by a third party. Parents' or older people's opinions were much more important than their person's own. During this time, the families of the shogunate and provincial leaders set up marriages based on their political interests. A daimyo wedding needed the approval of the shogunate. If a lower class or a common woman wanted to marry a samurai, she had to pay whatever amount was needed to get that privilege. Additionally, in the event that their spouse committed ritual suicide, these wives were also obligated to do the same. But it was common for samurai to date other men, and this was not looked down upon by society. Most of these relationships were between trainees and their masters who taught them. They always married a woman, but they could also have a sexual relationship with men. Let's take a look at what samurais used to do for entertainment. Clearly, they need something fun to do after all this hard training and learning. And the things they used to do for fun are even more shocking. They used to participate in a sport called ainumono. Ainumono was a Japanese game in which archers mounted on horses to shoot at dogs. The dogs were let out into a 15-meter wide circular pen, and mounted archers would shoot at them as they rode around the outside. The exercise started out as a way to train soldiers, but it became so popular that samurais and Japanese nobles started doing it for fun and competition. But it was not as depressing as it sounded. We should mention that the arrows used in the sport were padded, so the dog didn't die. This was less out of concern for the dog's well-being, and more so that the samurai who shot them didn't have to buy more arrows. This was today's video, but we have more interesting videos for you.